lovely listeners. I'm Cindy Linden, and this is the Cookalong podcast. I have an apology to offer before you start listening. I recorded this with a different mic in a different location. It was a desk mic, and you will notice some interesting sound things that happened because the microphone was on the desk instead of near my face. My apologies. The episode is worth listening to anyway. It's a very short, easy, yummy, gorgeous recipe that you can do. So please stay tuned, bear with me, and thanks for listening. Hi there. I'm Cindy Linden, and this is a Cookalong podcast quick bite. I have another recipe for you today that is too fast and too easy to actually cook along with you. It just would be silly to do a whole podcast of me just throwing things together and serving it up. So I'm just going to tell you how to do it. It's called Southwestern avocado chicken. This is a really old newspaper recipe. I just don't want to think or talk about how long I've had it. But I've always found it really a kind of a fun thing to make because it's a little bit elegant and yet incredibly simple. The only tricky part is finding a ripe avocado, which if you use avocados, I'm sure you're aware, you have to know when they're ready to eat, and you're only going to find that in the store if you're super lucky. So this is a chicken with a sauce over it, and then avocado slices on the top. It goes great with beans or rice. I'll talk about that in a minute. This serves 4 people, and I'm going to tell you a note about that as well. You need 4 chicken breasts, and they should be just boneless, skinless chicken breasts. And this recipe here that I'm looking at is old enough that it talks about whole chicken breasts. In other words, it's the whole front of the chicken, and you have to split the chicken breasts, bone them, and skin them. That gives you some idea how long before you could just buy boneless, skinless chicken breasts this actually was published. So here's how easy this is. You sprinkle the chicken with a teaspoon of ground cumin, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, and a quarter of a teaspoon of pepper. Just sprinkle that around over all 4 chicken breasts on both sides. And then you heat a tablespoon of olive oil in a 10-inch skillet over medium heat. And you put the chicken in there along with 1 clove of minced garlic. And you just cook it until it's browned. It depends on your pan, but 2 to 4 minutes aside, I would say. It doesn't have to be completely cooked through because we're going to cook it again in a minute. But you brown one side of the chicken, turn it over, brown the other side. When both sides are lightly browned, add 3/4 of a cup of picante sauce or salsa. That doesn't have to be anything fancy. I use paste, and I like the mild stuff because I'm kind of a weenie about that. So you've dumped that in the pan over the chicken. You put a lid over the pan and you simmer it for about 10 minutes until the chicken is done and tender. Nothing hard so far. You take the lid off, you take the chicken out and remove them to a serving platter. And then you stir into the picante sauce that's in the pan along with the juices from the chicken. You stir in 1/3 of a cup of sour cream. I like to use a light sour cream or a non-fat sour cream for this. But any sour cream is good, and if it's full fat, it's going to be a thicker and richer sauce. You stir that in until everything's well blended. You spoon that over the chicken, and you top it with sliced avocado. And the recipe suggests 1 ripe avocado for 4 chicken breasts. And then if you want to fancy it up, you can sprinkle it with cilantro or more picante sauce. I don't bother with any of those things. Once you've got the avocado slices on there, they are the finishing touch. Visually and, what's the word I want? Taste-wise, there must be a word for that. It doesn't really need anything else. It looks great. It looks like something that you spend a lot of time, effort, and ingredients making. And you did none of those. It all takes maybe 15 minutes to make. And then it's on the table. Now I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you 2 secrets. The first secret is that I have decided that I kind of prefer to make just 2 servings, but I use the full ingredients for the sauce. So I get more sauce. I'm living in a household of only 2 people right now, And I started to make this recipe, and I had 2 chicken breasts in there. And then before I had realized what I was doing, I put in the full amount instead of half amount of the seasonings. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just make all the sauce. Well, guess what? Here's a hot tip from me. If you do this with only 2 chicken breasts, and you make the full complement of the sauce, so everything else about the recipe is exactly as I read it to you, then you put some of the sauce over the chicken. There's more sauce if you want more sauce on the chicken, because it's really quite good. And you can pour some of that sauce, that nice warm salsa and sour cream sauce, into a bowl and serve it with some chips along with your chicken. And I kind of love that. The other day I found myself thinking, well, normally something like this seems like it ought to have some cheese. Maybe I should put some cheese, at least in the sauce part that I'm using with the chips. It does not need it. I immediately talked myself out of that. Now, if you listen to this podcast, you know that if I was to be left on earth with only one food, it would be cheese. So I put cheese in everything. But this is not the right thing. Even I, knew that the cheese would spoil this. Leave the cheese out. It's perfect just as it is. Now, here's the other thing I wanted to tell you about. The avocado, you need to get that pit out of there, of course, which you can do with the whack-a-mole principle, where you take a sharp, heavy knife and kind of whack it down into the avocado pit and then twist it a little bit and the pit will come out stuck to the knife. Or you can do it the even easier way, which is to cut the avocado in half and then put your thumbs on the back of the avocado behind the, on the skin, and your fingers around the edges. So you're using both hands, and you got your 2 thumbs planted in the middle of the back of this behind the pit. You push with your thumbs and that pit will just pop out of there. Now, you don't want to push too hard, but I don't think you'll need to. You should be able to get the pit out really easily. You just don't want to squish the avocado while you're at it. So you want your avocado ripe, but not mushy. And then you're going to just peel off the skin, which you should be able to do if the avocado is ready to eat. It should just peel off. There's probably some little gap somewhere along the cut edge that you can start picking at that skin, and it'll peel right off so that you're left with a perfect skinless, boneless, pitless half an avocado. And you do that with both halves of the avocado, because if you were having 4 chicken breasts, you need a little bit of avocado on the top of all 4 of them above the sauce, right? You put the sauce on and then the avocado. And if you're serving for only 2 people, you could decide to use only half of an avocado and put half of that half on top of each chicken breast. I decided that I would just leave the full amount of the avocado as well. So on top of the chicken breast, we also get a full half avocado. And what you're going to do once you get it all peeled, and it's beautiful, sitting perfectly on your cutting board with its cut side down, is make little thin slices the long direction. So cutting from the stem part to the bottom in 1/8-inch slices. And then what you want to do, when it's all sliced, is you take the palm of your hand and push those slices over. Just tip them over like dominoes. And they will form this gorgeous little fan, which you can then pick up with a spatula and place on top of the chicken breast. You can also do that if you only use 1/4 of an avocado. You just have to separate a little bit before you fan it out. And you'd want to start from the small side going toward the wide side for that. But it makes a beautiful dish, and I serve it sometimes with refried beans from a can. I believe in shortcuts where you can find them. And I might put a little cheese, I suppose, on top of that as I heated it up. Or some Spanish rice. And again, this is a shortcut. And it's not a terrible thing, really. You should have a shortcut. Although the recipe is already short, nonetheless, why put work into something else that goes with it if you don't have to? So I use Uncle Ben's 90-second ready rice, Spanish rice. You tear open the top of the pouch, you pop it in the microwave for 90 seconds, you take it out, and you have your side dish, and you just split that up. If you're doing servings for 4, you'd probably want 2 of those pouches, because a half of that package is just about a perfect accompanying serving for one person. So in other words, 2 servings per pouch. You can see pictures of this on the website if you want, thecookalongpodcast.com. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. This is so fast and so easy, you have no reason not to try this. And you will be surprised at how remarkably good this very simple, almost no ingredient recipe is. If you like it, pop on over to Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/thecookalongpodcast, and buy me a cup of coffee. Just donate $3 to the cause. That's all for today. Tune in 2 weeks from now for another quick recipe or some thoughts about cooking. And tune in next week for a brand new recipe that we can cook together. Until next time, happy cooking!